Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Knockout Analysis presented by Cron Media. I am your host, Ethan Chronister, cosplay, cosplaying this week as Kamzat Chimaev. This is your co-host, Mr. Whit Barnes. I'm not even going to get into the specifics of what he's cross-playing as this week. We're just going to move right into it. Let's start by giving the good people a recap on the events of last weekend.
I mean, last weekend, it was one of the cards of all time. The humble Las Vegas Apex. Not bad. Some good finishes. Eurosmatic, the doctor sent Urbina to the hospital. Cody Brundage is Cody Brundage. Um, Elijah Smith absolutely hospitalized somebody with a WrestleMania-esque slam. Nobody got knocked down the Sakara Walker fight. Very, very surprised about that one. My light heavyweight predictions at this point, if I say there's going to be a damn finish in a fight, go bet all your money for it to be a decision, because that's, I think, where it's been the last few fights. And let's see here. We got Duncan and Anders. Duncan, as predicted on Knockout Analysis, was the biggest sure thing on this card, and he made Eric Anders look like an amateur in that fight. I think Chris Duncan is on his way to the rankings, and I believe people need to, or the matchmakers at least, need to start putting some respect on his name, because they've been building him back up, and he's dominated his last two performances. And then some of these other fights were Andre Fili did his thing. Shout out to him. I'm glad that he got a win to keep him relevant in the featherweight division, as they're looking for new contenders. And the biggest surprise for me on this card probably has to be Delidze Hernandez. Anthony Hernandez looked the part. He looked like a top 5 middleweight. I'm going to give him his credit now. I didn't think he was going to go out there and put together that kind of performance, but he dominated the fight. He John Jones'd him, choked him out against the cage and dropped him on his head. Like, it was absolutely phenomenal performance. Made Roman Delidze, who has been very formidable in this division, look like an amateur. What do you got, Cron?
I think you're missing the most important thing. Steve Urseg's back in the win column, baby.
Yeah.
And Angela Hill, I hope you retire, and I hope you don't get a video send off, because you're an absolute disgrace to the sport. Well, that's going to move us in to UFC 319, a pay-per-view card. After 2 straight weeks of the Apex, we get a pay-per-view card. This one, I believe, Mr. Barnes, correct me if I'm wrong, this is in Chirac.
Mm-hmm. Home
On
of
the
Kanye
streets
West.
of the United Center, home of the Chicago Bulls. So, we're going to get right into this card, and we're going to start it off with 2 of the championship contenders for the Ultimate Fighting, or the Ultimate Fighter, in the 125-pound division. And that would be Alibi Idris facing off against the American Joseph Morales. Alibi here is undefeated in his pro career. He has quite a few finishes to his name, few decisions. There's not much, honestly, to tell about these kind of guys. Whit's a documented, not really a big fan of the Ultimate Fighters and the talents that they bring in, so there's not a whole lot for us to say in these. I'm going to give this fight to Mr. Joseph Morales here, because he has been in the UFC. He lost to Figueiredo. He lost to Eric Shelton, but he does have a UFC win by submission back in 2017, so I'm going to give this one to Mr. Morales based off of just soul experience.
Yeah, these fights are going to be hard to pick for me because, quite frankly, I don't know a whole lot about any of these guys. As Cron said, I don't think the Ultimate Fighter's super high level. I think a lot of these guys have been cut from the UFC and they try to come back in like Mr. Morales is doing. And a great example of this is Brad Katona. He's been in the UFC twice, both from winning the Ultimate Fighter, and he hasn't had great stints. He has also been cut from the UFC again after getting bus driver upcutted by Beksat Almakhan, who was also from Kazakhstan. From what I've heard, Dyrus has looked very legit, and he's looked a cut above from the rest of the fighters. And I'm also going to put respect on the Kazakhstan brand. They've only seen one trash fighter from Kazakhstan, and that is Nikolay Veretennikov, who damn near choked his last fight due to his incredibly low fight IQ. But I like Adiris. I'm just gonna look at the flag here and pick this one, and I'm gonna say that he's gonna win this fight by decision.
That'll move us on to the next one. We have Rodrigo Cezinando facing off against Danil Donchenko out of the war-torn country of Ukraine, and Rodrigo coming out of Brazil. Neither of these guys have fought in the UFC. This is going to be the last of the Ultimate Fighter things that we have on this one. No odds or anything on this fight. These fights are incredibly hard for us as analysts to try to predict here. But I think I'm going to take the Whit Barnes route on this one. He's coming from a war-torn country with something to prove. At 24 years old, I'm going to give it to him. He's going to win by knockout.
Yeah, I'm going to go war-torn country, and he's fought in one championship. UAE Warriors is a familiar, even though he lost in that promotion. Speaking of shows that the UFC does, I think the Contender Series guys are just much better. I'll touch on this one more time, which we will be doing a video for it next week. We will be doing it for next week. We missed out on this week, but it's not going to happen again. There will be a video up.
We didn't miss much because that card was boring as shit.
Yeah,
I watched the highlights back.
I also did, and the Russian dude whose name I can't remember because it is long had a very beautiful body kick knockout.
It was the only one that got signed.
Yeah. Well, the Ty Miller guy got signed. I guess he had good boxing in the highlights, but the other dudes on that card were bad. Dana White said in the press conference that it was one of the worst Contender Series ones he had seen pretty much. He pretty much told everybody, y'all had terrible effort, and I'm not signing you. Some of y'all in the prime of your career, some of y'all are young. Go win some fights, and maybe we'll pick you up on short notice pretty much. But we will be back. We will be in the lab in the film room. I'm going Ukrainian man on this one by, I don't know, hopefully he puts on for his country at 24 and Tiger Muay Thai, which is also a great gym, Screw it. Ukraine, Tiger Muay Thai, one championship. He's getting to the finish in this one. Second round. Shout out Rafael Fiziev, by the way, Tiger Muay Thai.
That'll move us on to the next fight, the last one of the early prelims. This fight will contain number 11, Karine Silva, facing off against Dion Barbosa. This is a women's flyweight bout that we have here. Huge favorite on this one for Silva. I guess huge is subjective to the term. I guess women would call this an average. An average favorite. But I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. I'm going to go with the ranked fighter here. Karine Silva is going to win this fight by probably the ugliest split decision known to man.
Yeah, I see a split decision on this one, and I was going to check real quick. Yeah, I was right. Yeah, earlier in the week, this was about a minus 160 for Silva, and I think that the line is warranted to have been growing. Dana Barbosa is going to receive this is going to be a major step up in competition. Belbita lost that fight very quickly in a fight that we talked about earlier this year. And Karine Silva, she's proven she's much more high level, and I think it's going to be too much, especially with Barboza losing to Miranda Maverick in the fashion she did earlier on. You know, Karine Silva, I will say, she kind of did quit in her last fight against Araujo. She was pulling guard. She was laying on the ground. She took a lot of damage to the legs. So that's something that could be exposed if Barboza decides to go that route, but I just don't see it happening. I see a 29-28 decision for Silva.
That'll move us into the next one. I I'm seeing conflicting stuff. That may have not have been the last fight on the early prelims. It's looking like um I don't
I'm
know.
saying
They
two more
can't make
fights, yeah.
yeah. It looks like it's gonna be the next one. Brian Battle facing off against Nursultan Ruzaboyev. Both fighters we know. I don't know that we've gotten a chance to talk about Battle yet. We have not. So Ruzaboyev and Battle. This should be a pretty interesting stylistic matchup. Obviously, experience wise, Ruzaboyev is going to have that advantage on about 99% of the UFC. In this one here, he's going to house a 4-inch reach advantage, but he's going, or a 4-inch height advantage, but he's going to lose an inch in reach and have a 2.5 or an inch and a half leg reach advantage. This one is an interesting one for sure. I think, I mean, Ruzaboyev he's great on the feet. He can wrestle. Brian Battle's relentless. He's just going to come at you with everything that he has for the full 15 minutes. I think I don't see a finish in this fight, but I think I'm going to have to give this one to Battle by split decision.
This is a very close fight. I'm in agreement with Cron. You know, these are both fighters that I enjoy watching, but they're kind of in the same spot here. They're coming off of sloppy performances, to say the least, at least from my perspective. You know, Battle gained a lot of fans by knocking out Kevin Jousset in the second round in France and absolutely calling out the whole entire country of France and flipping off the fans. It was absolutely cool, you know, from the 704 Carolina native. Shout out to Kimba Walker, man. But Brian Battle, he had a sloppy performance against Randy Brown after that. A split decision. A lot of people thought it was controversial because Battle was clinching and he was hugging against the fence. And he also missed weight by like 6 pounds in that fight. A lot of people weren't too fond of it, and I think that might be why he's moving up to middleweight. Dana may have forced the hand, been saying, hey, if you miss weight again at welterweight, we're going to get you out of here. Because Brian Battle, for those who don't know, the beginning of his career was fighting at heavyweight, I believe. I read that somewhere because his nickname was Pooh Bear. He was a bigger dude, so he probably does cut a lot of weight to get to welter, and I think middle will be a more natural weight class, and I think the transition will be very nice for him here against Ruzaboyev, who does have a lot of experience, but I will say Dustin Stoltzfus, which this is a fight that I picked, I was saying it was a sure thing that Ruzaboyev wasn't going to win. I was sitting there and I was like, damn, man, some judge could give it to Stoltzfus because he had moments in the wrestling where he was winning, but Stoltzfus did make a lot of technical errors doing submission over position, which I believe ended up costing the fight. But the good news for Ruzaboyev, I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of grappling in this one. I think both these dudes are going to stand and bang. And I want to say there's going to be a finish, but I think both these dudes are very tough to get out of there. Ruzaboyev survived against Buckley on the feet, and he has not been finished in the UFC yet. And Brian Battle's only been finished by sub, and that was very early in his career. And I just don't see these guys finish each other. I think they're going to have a lot of respect going both ways. And I see a close decision I'm going to give it to Brian Battle.
That'll
I
move
think he's
us
just on his
straight.
air.
That'll move us straight to the next one, which will be Edson Barboza, housing a 24-12 record. The betting favorite against, I'm going to assume that's Drakkar Close.
Indeed.
who is a 125 underdog in this fight. This is your invitation. As Knockout Analysis fans, you have received an invite to the unction. These guys are unks. 39 and 37. Much better record for Jakar. These guys are probably going to stand and bang for as long as they so can. Edson Barboza coming off of a loss in his last fight. He has 14 wins by knockout. And before his last fight, he did not fight. After his last fight in 2023, he did not fight until May of 2024, and now he's fighting again. So he's definitely been a lot less active, whether that be due to injuries or what. But Jakar coming off of a win, then a loss. He was knocked out in the first round of his last fight at the end of last year. I think I have to give this to the younger of the unks here. I think I'm going to pick Jakar close by unanimous decision.
Yeah, I mean, that's some good points. Edson Barboza, though, he has fought absolute menaces to society his whole entire career. He's beaten Hall of Famers out here. He's been top 5 in this division that he's fighting, and he's moving up from featherweight. He did just fight Lerone Murphy and Sadiq Yusuf in main events, in which he won one of them, which it has been some time. He has not been as active in his older age. He was supposed to fight Steve Garcia in a Seattle card earlier this year, but he pulled out due to injury, and that ultimately cost him his number 15 ranking at featherweight. And I believe that's why he decided to move to lightweight. I think the weight cut was too much for him to make at this point. And he's back, Edson Barboza, he's a striker. Jakar Close, he's a striker. But I think the experience is going to loom large for Barboza in this fight, especially since Jakar Close did get finished very early by Alvarez in December. Good fighters, close to the rankings. It should make for an entertaining bout to close out the early prelims, but I'm going to take Barboza here. I'm going to take him to get a finish in the second.
That'll move us into one. Housing a fighter that we talk about quite often on this podcast, and that would be Chase the Gooner Hooper facing off against Alexander the Great Ape Hernandez. I do recall Mr. Hernandez fighting Kurt Hollowball in one of our earlier cards. I think it was actually our first card that we did on Knockout Analysis. Chase Hooper was on one of the early cards as well. He may have been on the dreaded... No, he wasn't. He was on the Fight Night card with Volkanovski and Lopez. Okay, that's a good one. Where he fought Jim Miller. I remember that. He beat Jim Miller pretty handedly, and I believe he's going to do the same thing to Alexander Hernandez. I think that's a step down in competition for him. I think he wins this fight pretty easy. May even win it by submission in the second round.
Yeah, I mean, Alex Hernandez, I try to use this word lightly on this podcast. I use it a lot in real life, but I try to use it lightly on here. I think he's kind of a fraud, though. I think he could very well be heading into this on a 4-fight losing streak. I'd really question whether he won his last 2 fights. Especially the Kurt Hollowball one. I can't believe that was a UD. I cannot believe a judge gave him 30-27. It was just absolutely sick and wicked that they took Kurt Hollowball like that, because he out-volumed Hernandez. He out-damaged him, and Hernandez did get timely takedowns, which I think led to that decision, but I just didn't agree with it. I like damage over ground control, especially when you're doing nothing on the ground. And the Hubbard fight was also controversial as well, but both those dudes, I just think somebody had to win that fight, and they decided to give it to Hernandez because he has a slightly higher ceiling and a bigger name based off of his past promoting of the Donald Cerrone fight and his win over Beneil Dariush. But, geez, man, I think they gave him the most surging prospect they could possibly give him at lightweight. Chase Hooper went from a scrawny young buck who's getting absolutely clobber fucked by Steve Garcia and getting knocked down 3 times in a minute and a half, to going on a massive tear, choking out Unks and taking them to 30-27 decisions. I think his striking has developed. I think his grappling is near elite level as far as the BJJ goes. And I think it's going to be a lot for Alexander Hernandez to handle, especially considering he's been scraping by with these wins. I like the line here, man. Like minus 320 if you like some parlays, man, or if you're just feeling ballsy, you can bet him straight up. I would take Chase Hooper, man. I really would. I think he's a much better fighter, and I think he is on much more of a tear and has more legitimate wins at this point than Alexander Hernandez. Give me him by a darts choke at the 2-minute and 23-second mark in the third round.
That'll move us into the next one. Jessica Andrade, the 5th ranked strawweight women's contender, facing off against Lupe Godinez, another fighter that we have talked about on this podcast before. She is ranked number 12 in the division. Or no, number 11, my fault. Both of these fighters are coming off of different results. Andrade coming off of a loss in her last fight to Jasudavicius, which is another fight that we talked about. And Godinez coming off of a win in one of our earlier cards that we talked about as well. She's a little taller. Looks like she may be moving. I don't know. Jessica Andrade's last fight, she weighed in at 126. I don't know if this is a weight class move or what. But I think Jessica Andrade is washed now at this point in her career. I'm going to give this one to Lupe Godinez.
For women's fights, I think this is going to be an absolute war. Truthfully, I think this is going to be on the feet, and they're going to punch quite a bit in this one, because Lupe Godinez, her last fight on that Mexico City card, it was quite entertaining. They went out there and they scrapped. She ended up getting the better of the striking exchanges, and she won. And Andrade, I will agree, she is quite washed at this point in her career. Did not look great at all in the Jasudavicius fight, but I will give it some Jasudavicius some merit. She is on her way. She's marching towards that title shot. She has been the boogeyman of the women's, what division she is? Flyweight, the women's flyweight division, as she's marching towards Valentina Shevchenko. But Andrade, she kind of has a somewhat fraudulent championship run against Nami Yunus with the slam, and she has not been able to have sustainable success really since that. She has a 3-fight win streak against competition other than Lemos, which is a good win. But at this point, man, she hasn't beaten the greatest fighters. Marina Rodriguez is retired. Mackenzie Dern, Lupe Godinez, she's younger. She has less mileage. And I think she's going to be able to win the striking exchanges and just be faster in this fight. I'm going to take her to win this fight by 30-27 decision.
That'll catapult us right into the next one. We have GM3, Gerald Meerschaert, facing off against Michael Hussar Olajashik. Don't know why I couldn't get that one out. This is a very interesting stylistic fight, if you ask me. You have a knockout specialist facing off against a submission specialist. So they're going to have 2 different goals in this fight. And I give this fight 2 different outcomes. If they stay on the feet, Olajashik wins this fight 10 out of 10 times. If they get to the ground, then Olajashik could possibly be in trouble. Because Meerschaert does have 29 career submission victories. Could he make this one 30? Possibly. But if you ask me what I think these guys are going to stand and bang and grapple so long that they run out of time, and it'll probably end up being a decision win for Olajayshik.
Mm. One thing that I feel like noting here is every single one of his fights, besides one of them. I think I mentioned this in a previous video when we covered the Emmett Murphy card. All of his wins besides one have been by submission for Gerald Meerschaert. And I think the later
Either
this fight
submits or he
goes,
loses.
the more it favors him. Yeah. He's submitting, he's getting out volumed and getting out damaged is what has been happening, and that's been the story of his career. He's a fan favorite too. A lot of people know who he is. You know, he's probably not going to be near the rankings, but he's going to go out there and he's going to put on a good performance. He's usually pretty
like
durable unless he's
a firefighter.
Dude, oh my God, he does. I'm going to think that every single time I see him. I'm going to hear the sirens in my head now. But man, I think the longer this fight goes, the more it's going to favor Meerschaert. I think he's going to have better cardio. I think he's going to be able to lock in a sub late. Olajayshik has been very well known to get subbed. Kevin Holland, Michelle Pereira, not really guys known for, well, Kevin Holland's a little bit more known. These guys aren't like submission artists. Like these guys try to go in there, knock out, and put on a show, but they submitted him. Caio Baralho get a sub. Like, how many times has he been submitted in the UFC? Oh, he is a what is it? A Von Fluchoke OSP victim. I forgot about that. Shout out to OSP on the poster back here. God bless his soul. I hope he's enjoying retirement. But he's been subbed 5 times in the Ultimate Fighting Championship, and that is kind of scary. I don't know why he is a minus 235 favorite. And it is a stylistic fight. You know, styles make fights. If Olajayshik keeps it standing early, he does have the power to get Meerschaert out of there. But it would be hard for me to like sit here and bet on that, man. Like, this is a coin flip fight. And if you bet on this fight, I believe you need to just call the number, because ain't no way, man, you're laying the chalk on either of these guys without sweating bullets, you know.
However, we don't know, because this will be his first fight with the Fighting Nerd, so we don't know how well they've had him trained.
That is a great point. Cron makes a great point. Miles Olajayshik by first round knockout. Cron makes a great point. The Polish Fighting Nerd. Hell yeah. Yeah. And speaking of Mikhail Olajayshik, his brother will be on the Contender Series later this season, so be on the lookout. We could have 2 brothers. I think he also fights in the same weight class, so we might have the Olajayshik twins.
If he gets on,
twins.
you need to make him fight first fight.
Loser
gets cut.
Loser gets the death penalty in Poland.
Dakota Raider. Cover your ears, big dog. His reckoning has arrived.
Your title's
We
come.
have Bobby King Green facing off against Diego Ferreira. Boy, do we ever have some stories to tell on this one. First of all, let's just start with records. 32-17-1 for Bobby Green. 19-6 for Diego. You don't get called King Green by me. You're a fucking scrub. You're a bum. You're a bozo. This is about to be your 3rd straight loss in a row, and if people didn't like you, you'd get cut after that. I've seen worse fighters. I've seen better fighters get cut after losses in the UFC than your bum ass. You got knocked the fuck out and submitted and your arm broken by Paddy Pimble. All at the same time. Then you fight Mauricio Rufy. Hands down like you're some hoodlum fighting in fucking Philly. Kicked in the side of the temple. Knocked out like a Family Guy character. I can't stand this absolute scrub. Take them stupid tattoos off the top of your head. You're not good. You show up to the fight dripped out and leave in the same drip. And then you end up in the hospital with a drip in your arm because you get knocked the fuck out. You're a scrub. I'm sorry, but you are. Diego Ferreira by whatever he wants.
Yeah, man. I mean, King Green, this dude at this point in his career, he got 50 fights, and he has no chin, man. Like he's getting submitted, and I just don't think he's gonna work against Diego Ferreira, man. Jim Miller is his last win. Jim Miller's 40 years old. He is the unk of all unks, man. Which to be fair, there are people that Jim Miller can beat, and I think there's people that Bobby King Green can beat. But I think Diego Ferreira, man, I think he's like around the top 20 spot in lightweights, even though he is 40 years old. They have a common opponent in Grant Dawson. And Grant Dawson, man, if he gets you on the ground, that dude is like a wet t-shirt that's like a size too small, man. He's very hard to get off of you. Like he's one of those guys, like he has the Pat Sabatini method where he's going to sit in half guard and he's going to throw enough punches to not get stood up by the ref. That's just what he's going to do. And Diego Ferreira couldn't get off the ground. And I think Bobby King Green just got lucky against him on the right day. I think Grant Dawson beats Bobby King Green 9 times out of 10, truthfully. But every dog has their day, Grant Dawson is legit, as terrible as he is to watch, But Diego Ferreira was piecing up Grant Dawson for what it's worth. He has good defense on the feet. He's not going to get caught by some crazy punch by Bobby King Green, who doesn't have the craziest power either. I think it's going to take quite a bit to knock him out. Mateus Gamrot, Gregor Gillespie, Dustin Poirier, these are all like top tier lightweights, even though Gregor Gillespie doesn't fight anymore really. These are top tier guys. I don't think King Green, Bobby Green, whatever, is a top tier guy. I think Diego Ferreira is going to have his way, and because of the deteriorating chin of King Green, I think and the hands down approach, I think he's going to get knocked out in the first or second round. I'll say within the first 7 minutes of this fight, he's getting knocked out.
Probably a fair assessment. And I don't care if you do win, you're still a bum. Ask Kevin Holland. That'll move us to the next one. We have number 11th ranked Tim Elliott facing off against number 15th ranked Kaya Sakura. This is another one of those fights that is an interesting stylistic matchup. Man, they're both, from my understanding, they're both ground fighters. But Tim Elliott with a background in jiu-jitsu. Kaya Sakura just has that Japanese wrestling that they all have, but he's also got hands. He has 13 knockouts in his pro career, 3 submissions. I think I know where Whit's going to lean on this one, but I think I know where he wants to lean on this one. And for that reason, I'm just going to pick him because I don't think he's going to get picked. I got Tim Elliott to win this fight by unanimous decision.
And the closer we've gotten to this fight, the closer I've gotten to picking Tim Elliott and siding with you on this one, man. But, like, the inactivity, man. Like, what's this guy been doing for close to 2 years, dude? Like, has he been gooning at Grindhouse MMA underneath the cage? Like, I have no idea what this guy's 38, man. He's been in the rankings for an incredibly long time. Like, this dude's seen 2 different eras of guys. Like, this dude fought Joseph Benavidez. I believe he fought John Dodson, bro, in 2012. He got cut from the damn UFC. Full on came back, and he fought Mighty Mouse in the Ultimate Fighter, dude. Like, this dude is still here. And he's getting submitted by Chimaev, losing to Nicolau, somehow beat Tagir Lumbekov, which was really impressive in hindsight, truthfully. But, dude, what has this guy been doing? But he does, one thing that sticks out to me, man, is he does have submissions against decent fighters. And I think he might be able to do that against Asakura. Man, didn't really show me anything of that Pantoja fight besides an early flying knee. He got dominated like Kai Car France did. You
That
know,
flying knee
he's
was absolutely devastating too.
that would knock out a lot of dudes. You know, that would send Johnny Walker to retirement. That flying knee
There's
would have.
only two people I know that could take a knee like that. Apparently Pantoja and fucking Cheeto Vera.
Mm-hmm. Probably Max Holloway, more than likely. Maybe
Fuck Max Holloway.
before the
That's a
incident.
song for another time.
But yeah, man. I mean, the UFC competition he has fought other than Pantoja, he's like 1-3 against. He split with Manel Cobb. He got owned by Kyoji Horiguchi. And the rules are different, man, from the UFC to Risen. The rules are different. He can't throw knees on the ground to the face. He can't throw kicks to the face on the ground. And I really think that limits his game and that allows him to get less finishes. And he's less dangerous, man. I think Tim Elliott's going to do it, man. I'm talking myself into this. I think he's going to do it. I think he's going to have the crafty vet, people forget performance against Kaya Sakura, who may be an absolute K-pop fan's favorite fighter, but at the same time, this is the Ultimate Fighting Championship, right? He isn't Yuri Prohaska coming over from Risen, man. He's Kaya Sakura coming over from Risen. And give me Tim Elliott. Give me Tim Elliott by second round sub.
Yes, sir. You know what your prize is for that, Whit? Lead us into the next one.
Jared Cannonier and Michael Venom Page. I love this fight. Now, this fight, ideally, you know, in my mind, you know, you hear these two names and you're like, oh, this is going to be an absolute war. I don't think this is. I think this is going to be a technical fight. I think a lot of people will talk about this fight being trash after it happens because Michael Venom Page is going to be in range punching the shit out of Cannonier. Cannonier is going to be trying to shoot takedowns. He's going to land a few power shots here and there. Like, I just think this is going to be a low output type of fight. I think these guys realize how dangerous each other are. And, dude, neither of these guys want to lose this one because I don't think either of these guys really want this fight. Because Michael Page wants to fight at welterweight, but nobody at welterweight wants to fight him because they're all young and up and coming guys. They're young and up and coming guys. They don't want to fight down the rankings. But Page wants to stay active and fight. You know, he beat Sharp Bullet pretty recently. You know, the Ian Gary fight, a lot of people could argue that that was a draw. He landed a lot more damage, and Gary was laying and praying in that fight. You know, I'm not going to argue for Page to win. I think it was a close fight. I'm not going to say the decision was wrong. And Cannonier, man, the UFC really wants him out of the top 10 at middleweight. He's 41. He's not super exciting as a personality. He doesn't really sell fights, but he is damn good, man. And whenever he goes in there, it's usually an absolute war. But I don't think it will be, man. I think Page is going to have the speed advantage he has in damn near every fight that he's in. And I think he's going to get like a 30-27 here. I don't see a finish. I see probably about a total of 20 strikes landed per round, truthfully. And I don't know what they're going to do with Page after this. Because Page isn't going to be able to fight a lot of the guys in middleweight. You know, he has no chance against a guy like Khamzat. He has no chance against an Anthony Hernandez. There's more grapplers in this division than there is a welterweight. So maybe they're just making fun fights for him because he's recognizable and he is the Bellator boogeyman. But it's just a weird fight for both guys that's entertaining on paper. But in reality, I think it's just going to be a technical striking match.
I think Michael Page beat my sweet Pookie Bear Sharp Bullet Magomedov, so he wins this fight by second round knockout. And I'd be a damn fool to try to take this next one from you.
Man, before Cron got me, man, I was watching 24 minutes of CP on my computer, man. I love watching CP. Now, what I mean by that, before y'all call the cops, is Carlos Prates, the Nightmare, the man, the myth, the legend. And yes, this man does have a CP chain. For those who do not know the lore of the memes, this man has a CP chain, and a lot of people just thought it was funny. that this man was rocking around with a CP chain, because he definitely doesn't know what it means, because this guy speaks Portuguese, and it's definitely his first language. So it's just funny. It's a funny little joke I like to do. So I do not actually have. Okay, I don't have CP on my laptop. I have Carlos Prates on my laptop, damn it. And I love watching the CP on my laptop, man. But Carlos Prates, I don't know why the fuck this guy didn't put his foot on the gas in his last fight. Because, dude, the first 3 rounds, he was just kind of standing at range, man. He looked hesitant. He didn't fight like he did in any of his other fights. And a lot of people question his cardio, his gas tank, and I think he put all that to rest. Because he won the 4th round, and the 5th round he almost finished Ian Machado Gary. That was a great and fun card to watch that Kansas City won. But he's also fighting a guy that also kind of throws caution to the wind in Jeff Neal. You know, Jeff Neal is a tough customer for about anybody in this division. He is getting a little bit older. There's a lot of Fortis MMA guys on this card. I think this is the 3rd one I've seen. I know Diego Ferreira, I might be missing another name. But yeah, Fortis MMA will be all over here, man. Shout out Ryan Spann. Shout out to, who's that other Fortis dude? Never mind. It doesn't matter. Jeff Neal's nice as hell. You know, he won the fight against RDA. You know, RDA tore his ACL early, but I think he was going to win that fight anyway. I think it was a foregone conclusion, truthfully. You know, Ian Machado Gary, close fight, probably landed more damage. Shavkat Rakhmonov, that fight was one of the best fights of 2023. That was a war. Those dudes went in there and scrapped. You know, Shavkat got the late choke against the fence and was able to continue his massive finish streak that he had at that time. And more importantly, man, Jeff Neal beat Bilal Muhammad, man. Okay. But I think Carlos Prates, man, he has a massive reach. And I don't think he's the type of guy that just loses confidence, you know. I think he has more weapons. Well, Jeff Neal is a straight up pressure boxer. He's not going to be able to take Carlos Prates down, as proven in the last fight. You know, I don't think he's the greatest wrestler either. I think this is going to take place on the feet, and I think this fight's going to end pretty damn early. I think these guys are going to be aggressive and put on for the fans as we go into the co-main event here. I'll take Carlos Prates, Carlos CP, the Nightmare Prates. Shout out to him. My first round knockout.
I'm going to disagree here. And I'm going to say Jeff Neal's going to turn back the hands of time. And I think he wins by 3rd round knockout.
What I will say, for the gamblers out here, whenever this fight was supposed to happen, it was supposed to happen late last year. CP was like a minus 500. He's a minus 250 now, you know. Just take that for what you will. Take that for data. We can move on to the co-main.
Co-main. We're going to have 6th ranked Lerone Murphy facing off against the PFL pickup Aaron Pico, making his UFC debut. Mr. Pico is the current betting favorite, which is kind of crazy seeing as he is facing Lerone Murphy, the 6th ranked contender. He went from Bellator to PFL, so everywhere but the UFC. Then he moves to the UFC and gets a shot in the top 10 immediately, which I'm sure a lot of people probably aren't a fan of because they never are. This one, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. We've seen how fighters coming from other promotions has worked out for them this year. Just this year. I'm not confident in any fighter coming from an outside promotion at this point. I think that Lerone Murphy's going to silence his haters and probably win this fight by knockout.
Man, what I got to say about this one. Now, I will say, man, before I make this pick, I picked Pitbull in his first fight. I picked Patchy Mix in his first fight. I picked Tofik Musayev in his first fight. And all 3 of those guys lost. So do with that information what you will, but I think styles make fights, man. Aaron Pico was supposed to fight Movsar Evloev in the Abu Dhabi card in a 5-round main event, and it was going to be potentially this was supposed to be moved to this card, but that didn't end up happening. I think Movsar Evloev is an absolute awful stylistic matchup for Aaron Pico. I think he was going to get absolutely hornswoggled to like a 50-43 decision. But dude, Lerone Murphy, he was getting taken down by Josh Emmett, dude. And that was like Josh Emmett's first attempt at a takedown in many, many, many fights. I just don't see him being able to handle the pressure. Like Lerone Murphy, a lot of people, and I think this is a great comparison, a lot of people have compared him to Leon Edwards. You know, it's not just because he's from England. He likes to fight at range. He likes to fight at his own terms. You know, he throws sneaky elbows, sneaky kicks to hurt his opponent. He fights on the perimeter and all that.
You
And you know what beat?
Smells like a fraud.
The fraud Murphy.
No, fraud Edwards.
The fraud Edwards. But I will say, oh my God. So Leon Edwards, Lerone Murphy, you know what they have common other than their country?
They're
I
black.
can't spell Lerone without that too. You can't spell Lerone without Leon, you know? And I think the pressure wrestling of Aaron Pico and the boxing, I think it's going to be too much for Lerone Murphy. And I think that he's going to get picked up. Lerone Murphy is going to get picked up on his shoulder in the first round and thrown on his head like Bilal did to Leon Edwards. And I think this is going to be another tough night for the country of England and one of their most prized fighters at the moment. With the UFC, I think they want Lerone Murphy to lose. They don't want him to fight for a title. He gets a lot of decisions. He isn't super exciting, and he was the winner of the main event of probably the worst card of all time in UFC Vegas 104. Believe it was 104. Don't quote me on that. Yeah, it doesn't even say it. Doesn't even say it on the ESPN website, but I believe it's 104. But I think he's going to lose this fight 30-27. You know, Aaron Pico does have great power. You know, some people have compared him to Michael Chandler because he's very entertaining, he's emphatic and all that. I think he's a little bit new. His skill's a little bit more nuanced than that. You know, I think he's going to use the wrestling. I think he's going to want to get a win here in his debut. And if he gets a finish, I wouldn't be surprised at all if they gave him a title shot later in the year, even though I would love to see Evloev versus Volk on the same card as JDM and Makachev. I think everybody wants to see that card. That would feed families, to say the least, or as the kids would say, feed families. I want to take Pico by 30-27. I don't think Lerone Murphy has that dog in him. And Cron, we've built up this whole entire card. This next one, I'll give you some time on this one.
We have reached the pinnacle of the event. Probably, besides the fabled Topuria Makachev fight that never happened, the most anticipated fight of the year. Or Aspinall Jones that never happened. Driscus Duplessis facing off against Khamzat Chimaev for the middleweight title. This will be an absolute war, or it won't be. This fight could end in 30 seconds. This fight could end at 4 minutes and 59 seconds in round number 5. This fight could go the distance. No one really knows when it comes to these two.
This fight
All
could
I
never
can
end.
tell you is I am a very firm believer in Khamzat Chimaev. Driscus always finds a way out of some interesting spots. Albeit the Adesanya fight where he got physically dropped but still found a way to grab and take down Adesanya by grabbing his foot when he was on the ground. Things like that. The plot armor, as Whit said last week or the week before, whichever one, where the dude you said by Cartoon Network Hammer got knocked out in the first round. um, but that being said, I think this has potential to be a very long, very entertaining fight. But we all know what Chimaev's coming in there to do. He wants to get you on the ground, he wants to wrestle you, and he wants to put you in a submission, and he wants to take your life because he's a psychopath. Driscus is like one of those guys in the street that knows how to fight. He just doesn't take it seriously, and then you look over in the middle of a bar fight and he's knocked out like 7 people, and he's just nonchalantly one of those type people. And that's what's going to make this fight so interesting. I've been very adamant on my belief in Khamzat Chimaev, and here's what I think is going to happen. I think in round 2, about a minute and a half into round 2, Khamzat Chimaev is going to land a bus driver uppercut, stun Du Plessis, get him to the ground. He's going to take his back. He's going to put him in a rear naked choke. He's going to win the title, and from that point on, he will not lose until he retires, and he will be Khabib.
Man, this fight is like one of those, like, I really don't have any idea what's going to happen, as far as like a title fight. And, I kind of felt this way before the Topuria fight, even though I predicted exactly what was going to happen in that one. And I think if Khamzat wins in like a fashion, if he wins in the first round, I'm lying. I don't even know what I'm saying. I think it would be insane if he goes there and subs Dricus in the first round and a half. Because Dricus Du Plessis, he has submitted and beat a whole entire Gracie Barra gym, or dojo, whatever it is. He submitted all of them. But this guy's great at jiu-jitsu. He is very unique on the feet to where nobody can figure him out. There's layered strikers like Israel Adesanya, Sean Strickland, the guys who spar and who box all the time that can't figure this guy out. His timing is unpredictable, dude. Like, you watch him blitz at people, bro. You think you'd be able to knock him out with an uppercut pretty easily because his head is in front of his knees every single time and he's blitzing. But nobody can knock him out. He cannot be finished. He's only been finished by who? Soldic on the feet? And that was even before the UFC. He's had a lot of big wins on his massive win streak and run towards the belt. And I think if he wins this, man, he's a few fights away from being the GOAT at this middleweight division, man. Because who else is going to challenge him? Reiner de Ritter, I think, would be the next fight, but I don't want to get too ahead of myself. Khamzat Chimaev has, in my opinion, the second coolest custom shorts. I love the Wolf shorts. They are bad ass. I don't care about the people saying they're weird. I think they're incredibly cool. I think Pantojas are slightly cooler, but they're badass, man. And he has just pretty much ran through every single guy he's faced, apart from Gilbert Burns and Kamaru Usman. And that's where I'm going to spend most of my time here, because especially in the Usman fight, a fight that was at 185, Kamaru Usman took that on 10 days' notice. That fight was super close after the first round. The first round, Khamzat Chimaev 10-8'd him. He does what he does. He takes him down. And he makes Kamaru Usman look pretty easy in that first round. A guy who's a layered wrestler, layered grappler. But after that, he's gassed. He's gassed against the layered grappler because he cannot impose his will, right? He can't get the early submission he wants. And I don't think he's going to be able to do that against DDP, man. I don't think he's going to be able to rear naked choke. He might get his back. He might be able to get him on the ground. But I don't think he's going to be able to get a rear naked choke. Like, this is potentially one of the best fighters in middleweight history that we're watching right now. Both of these guys
I think
could.
we're watching too.
Because if Khamzat wins this, bro, who's beating him? Right? If Dricus wins this, who's beating him? I don't see them losing anytime soon. They're both in the prime of their careers at middleweight, 31 years old. They could go on for as long as they want. Because in this division, you can fight until you're 40 at 185.
All I also have to say about this is the matchmakers absolutely cooked with this one.
This shit is beautiful, man. I wish these guys had, like, I mean, a lot of people know Khamzat, but not everybody knows Dricus. And I think a lot of people are going to blindly pick Khamzat because he is so dominant. He talks about killing everybody in his post-fight speeches, man. But I think Dricus is going to be able to survive. I think he's going to get out of those first 2 rounds. I think the third round, the momentum is going to start to shift. Dricus is going to have some moments. I think Dricus will get a finish in the 4th round, in the late 4th.
You think Khamzat's not a psychopath? Dude had a fight near 9/11 in America talking about, I'll kill you all, Allahu Akbar. He's a psychopath.
Absolutely nuts. Like, for those who don't watch PFL, watch the Johnny Eblen, Costello Van Steenis fight. I could see this fight going very similar to that. You know, for those who don't know, Johnny Eblen, wrestler, goes very hard in the first 2 rounds. 3rd round, close round. He was starting to gas out. 4th round, he was gassed out and was getting pieced up by Van Steenis. 5th round, Van Steenis choked him out with 5 seconds left. Like, it was an insane fight. I think everybody should watch it. It's one of the craziest comebacks I've seen. And I think Duplessis, I don't think he's getting finished, man. I think he's gonna do it late in this fight. And it's gonna be one of the fights of the year, absolutely. These guys are gonna go to war for our entertainment.
That being said, we have reached the end. We will try not to forget to post our UFC prediction cards on Twitter this week, because we definitely did last week.
Yeah, the Apex.
Matter of fact, knowing Whit, now that I said that, he'll probably send them right after this shit's over with. But that being said, we have reached the end of this one. We appreciate you guys for staying tuned. Shout out Shank It Golf, W.GG, and CowboyRevolution.com. Use code CronioMedia at checkout for a percentage off at checkout on all purchases. Stay tuned. We may have some stuff coming later this week unrelated to the UFC. We may have some local homegrown Oklahoma talent in there for an interview. Some real exciting fighters. Got a couple in the works. Of course, you know, we've always got our boy Tracy, who, shout out, Tracy Reeder, he is now an MMA champion for XFN. And that was a very good comeback that he had. Because I won't lie, I was a little scared in the 2nd round. He was getting pieced up a little bit, looked a little tired, but he also did get poked in the eye and the ref did nothing about it. But he came back, found an opportunity, put him in a rear naked choke, and tried to take his life. Shout out our boy Tracy. And like I said, also keep tuned. I got some stuff coming up for one of my other podcasts, so keep that in mind as well. We appreciate all you guys for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube, and we'll see you in the next one.
Like the video.
Shout out Dirk Nowitzki.